Hello and thank you for joining me. Today I am coming to you from a higher elevation than usual. We are far above sea level in the French Alps. And after a long day of hiking, we need something nice and hearty after all that exercise. So I thought we should take a look at a potato pancake of sorts called a Rösti. This is actually a dish of Swiss origin, but since Switzerland is basically just over on the other side of these mountains, I figured it would make sense to demonstrate it here. Plus, you can definitely find very similar potato dishes on the French side of the border. My cooking facilities at this Airbnb are rustic, but it's worth noting that even this Spartan Ski Lodge kitchen has a salad spinner. Shows you how much the French love their salads. Anyway, this kitchen will be perfectly adequate to pull off this simple, stick-to-your-ribs dish. Let's see what this old stove's got. First, we need to take care of the most delicate part of this operation. We need to clarify some butter. If you want to skip this step and just use a neutral oil when cooking your Rösti, you could get away with it. But clarified butter just gives a really beautiful final color to the dish. And the taste is great too. I only need a few tablespoons of it, but it would be hard to clarify such a small amount, so I'm just throwing a hunk in a pot over low heat. I'm sure I'll find uses for the leftovers later on. Now we just let that melt slowly and the solids will begin to separate out. Full disclosure, I wasn't using a recipe when I made this. I'll put one in the description so you have something to work with, but honestly, this is one of those things that you can really easily feel out depending on your situation. No need to stress about exact measurements. As you can see, as the butter melts, the solids separate out from the pure fat, and then I just go through with a spoon and skim off that white foam. Do your best, but don't panic if a little bit of the white foam ends up left behind. Also, don't toss those butter solids. Use it to saute basically anything. Now let's talk potatoes. When I make Rösti back home in the US, I will usually opt for a high-starch potato like russets or Idaho. You don't find those varieties over here though, so I just grabbed this bag. Luckily, this dish is pretty forgiving and should work with whatever potatoes you get your little paws on. I'm going to be using a small skillet, around 8 inches or so I think these will be more than enough. They look pretty clean, but just to be sure, I'll give them a quick rinse in the old colander. And to fully embrace my rustic situation, I won't even be peeling these, but you could certainly do that if you wanted to. If you have a food processor, you could pull that out now and use the shredder attachment with the largest holes. But here in ski country, we don't have access to a food processor, so I'm just going to use this funny grater. Man, I really wish I had just a regular box grater right now. But no matter. Eventually I get through them. Now with all those potatoes shredded, I get them onto a kitchen towel. Probably one of your older ones that you don't mind getting some potato juice on. And now I just twist and squeeze those potatoes, getting out most of that water. But it doesn't hurt to have a little left behind because the steam from that water will cook the potatoes on the inside of the Rösti. And now for seasoning, we keep things simple with some salt and pepper. And give that a mix. And now our prep work is done. I have here a little non-stick pan, but if you had something in cast iron, that would also be nice. I've got the pan on medium-ish heat, and I spoon in some of that clarified butter, maybe totaling about 2 tablespoons or so. Now I take my shredded potatoes, and I drop them into the pan. And once the pan is fairly full, I just try to pack the potatoes snugly into the pan. Compressing the potatoes just a little helps us get a nice, consistently crunchy crust. You can tell from the sound the potatoes made when they went into the pan that the heat is a little too high. I needed to dial back that medium-ish to more of a solid medium-low. You want your inner potatoes to have enough time to cook by the time the crust has browned enough, If it's too high, you could end up with a golden brown outside with a raw potato inside. But I know you will be fine and figure it out. We just let those potatoes cook on medium-low for about 10 minutes. At that point, you can use a spatula to lift up the Rösti a bit so you can peek underneath and see if that color is where you want it. Your stove is different than mine, so maybe it needs a couple more minutes. Or maybe your medium-low is too low and needs to be dialed up a hair. Use that intuition of yours. Instead of peeking under, I'm just going to flip this Rösti in one fell swoop. It's easier than you might think. And as you can see, my heat was indeed up a little too high when the potatoes first went in. So I've got some patches that are a little overly browned. But that's okay, because we can just make sure that the other side is beautiful and serve it ugly side down. If you are hesitant to flip your Rösti like that, there are alternatives. One of the easier ways to go about it is to get a plate and place it over the pan. Now, just holding that plate securely on top of the pan, you flip it in one smooth motion. Have confidence. Once it is on the plate, you can easily slide it right back into the pan for the second half of cooking. However you flip, we now let those potatoes cook for another 10 minutes or so on the other side. And after that time is up, we check in on the color of the opposite side. I'm doing the quick flip. Ooh, that looks nice. And with that, we are basically ready to eat here. Let's plate it up. Isn't this red checkered tablecloth great? And how about that Rösti? Rösti are frequently served as a side dish, but it doesn't take much to transform them into a main course. To do that tonight, I'm just going to pile on some nice slices of smoked salmon. Oh yeah. And how about some creme fraiche with that? I forgot to buy chives at the grocery store, but they would certainly be welcome here. And with a rich potato dish like this, I think a nice simple salad would pair just perfectly. And since we are in France, why not serve a nice French omelet alongside it while we're at it? Now this is simple, satisfying cooking. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed my high-elevation presentation of this Swiss classic, and I hope you give it a try yourself sometime. Try it as I did, or serve it alongside a nice roasted meat dish. It will work perfectly there. And aside from adding smoked salmon, there are plenty of other additions that turn this Rösti into a main course. Onions, bacon, and cheese, to name a few classic options. So take a hike, and then get cooking. And until next time, cheers!